No matter where you're from, this story will pull you in. The most horrific Byzantine sexual practices created history's most powerful empress, and what happens next will shock you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Whether you're watching from the US, UK, or anywhere in the world, this one's for you. Let's get started. The story begins in the restless heart of New Orleans, a city that, even in the late 19th century, carried the aura of mystery and temptation. The French Quarter had always been a place where boundaries blurred, between virtue and vice, between civility and indulgence, between high society and the forbidden underworld. It was in these dimly lit streets, full of music, laughter, and whispered sins, that Clara Duval was born. Her parents had fled France after losing their fortune, arriving in America with little more than pride and memories of better days. They expected Clara to live quietly, to marry, and to build a modest life in this new world. But Clara was different. Even as a child, she had a restless curiosity and a fascination with history. At 13, she stumbled upon an old book in a church library, one that told the story of Byzantium, a world of emperors, splendor, and unthinkable scandal. Among the figures in those pages, one stood above all: Empress Theodora, a woman who had risen from the most degraded performances of Constantinople's theaters to command an empire at her husband Justinian's side. For Clara, the story was not just history, it was a revelation. If Theodora could turn humiliation into sovereignty, then why couldn't she? By her teenage years, Clara had already entered the secret world of New Orleans masquerades. The masked balls were infamous, ostensibly celebrations of music and art, but beneath the silks and costumes, they became spaces of excess and temptation. Clara's beauty was undeniable, but it was her intelligence that made her unforgettable. She studied her audience, just as Theodora had studied the men of Byzantium. She learned what they desired, what they feared, and, more importantly, what secrets they could never allow to reach the light of day. Soon, Clara had built a reputation. Wealthy merchants invited her to private gatherings, lawyers sought her company, and politicians whispered her name behind closed doors. She was not a mistress in the common sense, she was a mirror in which powerful men saw their desires reflected, and in that reflection, Clara found her control. The 1890s were an age of growth for America, but also of scandal. Newspapers thrived on stories of corruption, ruined reputations, and political betrayals. Clara knew how fragile power could be. She began to keep records, not written on paper, which could be stolen, but in her memory, sharp and precise. Every word spoken to her in confidence, every secret revealed in weakness, became a stone in the foundation of her influence. What set her apart from others in the hidden world of desire was her strategy. While many women were discarded once their beauty faded or their affairs were exposed, Clara turned scandal into armor. If someone mocked her past, she reminded them of what she knew about theirs. If a man tried to cast her aside, she revealed just enough of his secrets to keep him in her orbit. She mastered the art of survival through reputation, using her history as a weapon rather than a weakness. By the age of 28, Clara had moved from the French Quarter into a mansion on Esplanade Avenue. The house itself became her court, with its grand halls, velvet curtains, and secret chambers where America's most respected men came to seek her company. And in every whispered conversation, every desperate confession, Clara grew stronger. The parallels to Byzantium were clear. Just as Empress Theodora had transformed her reputation as a scandalous actress into the foundation of her imperial authority, Clara Duval transformed herself into something more than a courtesan. She became a strategist, a confidant, and, in time, a power broker whose reach extended beyond Louisiana. Yet this rise was not without its horrors. Many of the men who visited Clara believed in ownership, that a woman, once taken, could never claim power of her own. Some tried to break her, to force her into silence. Others threatened her life when she wielded too much influence. But like Theodora, Clara endured. Every act of cruelty only deepened her resolve. If the Byzantines had practiced shocking and brutal methods of asserting control, Clara learned to mirror them, not through violence, but through psychological mastery. She was no longer a girl from a poor immigrant family. She was America's answer to Byzantium's most infamous empress, and she had only begun her ascent. By the dawn of the 20th century, Clara Duval was a legend. To some, she was a scandalous temptress, unworthy of respect. To others, she was a necessary evil, the keeper of secrets who ensured that certain men maintained their positions of power while others fell from grace. But to those who truly knew her influence, she was something greater, a ruler without a throne, a woman who commanded the future of states and senators from the shadows. Her mansion on Esplanade Avenue became a court in every sense of the word. Men arrived under the cover of night, slipping past iron gates to enter a world of music, wine, and whispered indulgence. Yet beyond the indulgence lay strategy. Clara advised them on alliances, warned them against rivals, and sometimes demanded loyalty in exchange for silence. A single word from her could destroy a career, and she wielded that power with the precision of a Byzantine general. It was during the heated election year of 1912 that Clara's influence reached its height. A senator from the South, known for his fiery speeches against corruption, secretly visited her mansion. Within weeks, evidence of his private affairs leaked to the press, letters, rumors, whispers that spread like wildfire. The senator's career collapsed, and the path cleared for Clara's chosen ally to rise. It was a maneuver worthy of Theodora herself, who had once turned the darkest chapters of her life into stepping stones toward sovereignty. Newspapers speculated about Clara, though few dared to print her name directly. They spoke instead of the woman behind the curtain, or the Queen of Esplanade. And while America prided itself on democracy and equality, behind the scenes, Clara was proof that history's oldest truth remained: power was often shaped in the shadows, not on the grand stage. Yet Clara's reign was not without cost. She was accused of blackmail, though no charges ever held. Rivals sought to silence her, to reduce her influence by painting her as a fallen woman. Still, she endured, just as Theodora had once endured the cruelty of those who could not accept a woman rising above them. Clara herself often reflected on this. In her private journals, later discovered after her death, she wrote, "I have walked the path of Theodora, though my empire is not of marble halls but of trembling voices. I have ruled without a crown, but no emperor ever held men more tightly than I." When Clara died in 1924, she left behind no heirs, no legitimate fortune, and no official title. Yet her name lingered in whispers, carried by those who had once feared her influence. Like the Byzantine empress who had inspired her, Clara was remembered not for her virtue but for her power, the kind of power that turns shame into sovereignty and scandal into empire. Her story became legend, retold in hushed tones as a warning and as an inspiration. She was both villain and heroine, sinner and strategist. And though America never crowned her an empress, history remembered her as one. For in the end, Clara de Val proved what the Byzantines had known centuries before: that power is not always inherited, nor given, it is seized, often by those bold enough to use the very horrors of their past as the foundation of their future.